person next week in Sydney, but the market didn't let us wait. So what the fuck is going on? Everyone's panicking. Bitcoin's crashing. I'm sure your phone has been ringing nonstop. Give us the update.
I love it. The sentiment is complete dog shit. We're at 84,000. I think we touched 83 this morning, but it is so interesting. This cycle has been somewhat different because the sentiment off like a 5%, 10%, 20% move, yes, the market's down, but like if you look at it in the context of the fact that we've had such a tremendous rally, it looks no worse than any other correction, any other bull market. It's been really interesting to me. I've been thinking about this a lot. Why does sentiment get so just hamstrung off what seemingly are kind of normal, simple moves? So it's a really interesting dynamic.
Like you say, like Twitter has been an absolute meltdown. And a 30% drop in a bull market is a very par for the course for Bitcoin. What do you think is driving that sentiment?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this quite a bit. I think there's a couple of things. I saw a poll. I can't remember if I did it or someone else did it. In fact, I think I did for our subscribers. I asked, what class are you from? Like 2017 and before, that middle choppy period, 2018, 19, that was my class, 2021 or this recent cycle. And the vast majority, I think like 50% of people came from the last cycle, the 2020-21 cycle. 35% or something were from the previous classes. So there's a much smaller cohort of new people, but still non-trivial. They're obviously going through their first cycle. That's a new thing that everyone kind of has to deal with. But I also think the people who are coming in this cycle probably they're a bit more sophisticated, I would think. You've got more big money managers, more capital allocators. They probably understand markets, generally speaking, and they've finally just got the access to Bitcoin and ETFs and all the rest of it. What I've actually come to the main conclusion of is this interesting divergence between Bitcoin and crypto, where I think people have just not held enough Bitcoin. And I don't think people expected a Bitcoin dominant cycle the way that it has been, massively over-allocated to everything else. Probably what's even worse about that is that a lot of alts actually haven't performed. So people just were kind of allocated in the wrong way. And I also have a very strong suspicion that MicroStrategy has done a lot of people dirty, because I just think some people rode the wave. So if you're listening to this and you own MicroStrategy, you're going to be in one of two camps. You've been around for long enough and you're down off the highs, but you still got a fat green number in your portfolio. You had the foresight. The vast majority of people bought at 400, 500. That's just where we had $40 billion of trade volume at the all-time high tick, and it's down 50% from there. There's also access to options. People would have bought call options. I saw them in the Irresponsibly Long MicroStrategy channel, which, by the way, every time you hear Irresponsibly Long X in this industry, X ain't in a good place, right? It's not a good sign. So anyway, I've seen a lot of people went long call options and they go to zero, right? If you had February call options for $1,000, they are a big fat zero. There's no that shitcoin's going to come back. Maybe it's gone. That money is destroyed. So I think a lot of people just held the wrong thing and they didn't expect a spot driven, just sit and do nothing, hodl only. It's a simple strategy. It's not an easy strategy, but I think a lot of people tried to juice it and it's bit you in the ass.
It really has. And I think also a lot of people expected when Trump came in, that to be like a massive catalyst to move higher. And really, we hit the all-time high pretty much before Trump came in.
That's it. And I think that's another thing a lot of people get confused with is that, generally speaking, the headline is not what moves the market, right? So as a good example of this, yes, Trump got elected and yes, the market went from 70 to 100 following that. But the 7 months of chop solidation that came before that is what allowed that to happen. If you didn't have that reaccumulation period, you don't get the rally higher. So I think a lot of people confuse the headline for the reason. Sometimes there's events where the headline has some short-term action, but in my experience, very, very rarely does a headline flash across and it changes a bull market to a bear market. Very, very rarely does this happen. It's usually a short-term move that if you close your eyes, come back in a month's time, come back in 2 weeks' time, come back in 3 days, it's usually gone. You will never ever look at that candle ever again and say that was the pivot point. So generally speaking, news doesn't change markets. It's usually just the final straw that makes the market kick into gear. Good example of this, the China mining ban. I know a lot of people think that's what killed the bull back in 2021. The sell-off in May was what killed the bull. But GBTC going into a discount was actually what killed the bull, because you got to realize all the leverage and damage and the spot bid just evaporated. The China mining ban was the final excuse, just that last straw that broke it. headlines